Giridharadhari. Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you. You're the man. Jai. 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 I don't know where that came from. Jai. Giriraj Swami and somebody. Jai. Now? Now? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today, new chapter. We'll take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 22, texts 1 and 2. What do we have up there? Nothing. Maitreya Uvacha. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Please do one alone and then we'll do two together.
Oh, okay. Evam avishkrita shesha guna karmodayo munim savrida evatang samrad upadatam uvacha. Translation. Sri Maitreya said, after describing the greatness of the emperor's manifold qualities and activities, the sage became silent, and the emperor, feeling modesty, addressed him as follows. We ready? Text 2. Manuruvacha Brahma srijat swamukhato Yusmanatma paripsaya Chandomayastapo vidya Yoga yuktana lampatan Brahma srijat swamukhato Yushmanatma paripsaya I remember when I took music lessons as a kid, they told me when you make a mistake, don't stop, just keep going. And I did it, I stopped. Chando mayastapo vidya yoga yuktana lampatan brahmasrajat swamukato yushmanatma paripsaya chando mayastapo vidya yoga yuktana lampatan. Others, please. Manuruvacha Brahmasrujat Swamukato Vaishnavis. Word to word. Manu, Manu, Uvacha, said, Brahma, Lord Brahma, Asrajat, created, Svamukhata, from his face, Yushman, you, the Brahmanas, Atma Paripsaya, protect himself by expanding. Chandamaya, the form of the Vedas. Tapaha Vidya Yoga Yuktan, full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power. Alampatan, averse to sense gratification. Does that word sound familiar? Alampata? We praise Krishna as being crazy about sense gratification, right? This is Radharani's voice. Whatever, after all, he's just a rascal. But he's my rascal. But this is alampata, averse to sense gratification. This is the opposite. So this is, Manu replied, Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport. Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Vedas, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. Responsively, please. Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The purpose of the Vedas is to propagate the transcendental knowledge of the absolute truth. The Brahmanas were created from the mouth of the Supreme Person, and therefore they're meant to spread the knowledge of the Vedas in order to spread the glories of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita also, the Lord says that all the Vedas are meant for understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is especially mentioned here, Yoga Yuktan Alampatan, that the Brahmanas are full of mystic power and are completely averse to sense gratification. Actually, there are two kinds of occupation. One occupation in the material world is sense gratification, and the other occupation is spiritual activity to satisfy the Lord by his glorification. Those who engage in sense gratification are called demons, and those who spread the glorification of the Lord or satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord are called demigods. Specifically, it is mentioned here that the Brahmanas are created from the face of the cosmic personality, or Virat Purusha. Similarly, the Brahmanas are said to be created from his arms. The Vaishyas create... Did I miss something? I'm sorry, thank you. Oh, yeah. One of the things I forgot was my reading glasses. Similarly, it is said that the Kshatriyas are said to be created from his arms. The Vaishyas are created from his waist. And the Shudras are created from his legs. Brahmanas are especially meant for austerity, learning, and knowledge, and are averse to all kinds of sense gratification. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukhaṁ karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yatkripa tamahang bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. I especially ask for the Vaishnava's blessings that I may finish before the hook comes. Okay, the verse again. Brahmasrudat samukato yushmanatma paripsaya chandomayastapo vidya yoga yuktan alampatan. Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. So there are a couple of points that we can take away from these two verses, especially together. Srila Prabhupada, in the first part of the purport, talks about the purpose of the Vedic literature, and that is to spread transcendental knowledge of the absolute truth. So this is an important thing to understand. Srila Prabhupada translates, he presents Lord Brahma in his translation of the text as the personified Veda. And so he points out that this transcendental knowledge is given by the Lord through such texts as Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other Vedas. We're particularly interested in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam because if you look at the Vedic literature broadly, there's something for everyone. There's something for those who are after sense gratification, the karma kanda. There's something for those who are after some kind of mystic realization and attainment, the yoga kanda, and then you've got the jnana kanda, which is for those who are interested in liberation. But Srimad Bhagavatam is, as it says itself, a completely different creation. It's meant for those who, as we see in the second verse, which is a statement of what it's called the Vastu Nirdesha Shloka. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that a Mangalacharana has three parts. One is Namaskar, offering of respect, obeisance to the deity of the text. And we have that in the Bhagavatam in the first verse, right? This text is for worshiping Vasudeva Krishna. And for whom is it intended? What's it really about? Well, Dharma Prodchita Kaitavatra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. This is a text meant for those who have already completely rejected all kinds of cheating religion. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, give up. We've talked about so many things from so many different angles over the last 600 odd verses. Forget it. Sarva dharman parityajya. Forget all conventional senses of dharma and just take shelter in me exclusively. And so the Bhagavatam picks up at the next step. For those who've done that, dharma praujhita kaitavat. Praujhita, completely rejected. Just as we see in the Gita, it's not just tyajya, it's parityaja. Completely reject. Throw it away. Flush it. Run away from it. And so for those who have praujhita, completely rejected all kinds of cheating religion, now we've got something to talk about. For those people, and it's especially going to be interesting for those people who are completely pure at heart. How are they pure in heart? Because they have no personal agenda. There's no envy. Because they don't have any interest in, as Krishnadas Kaviraj explains when he has Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the 22nd chapter of Madhya Lila, the instructions to Sanatana Goswami on the process of devotional service. He says, what do we mean by cheating religion, by Kaitava Dharma? He says, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, Vansha. Wait, that's the whole thing, right? That's the whole enchilada right there. Those are the four goals of human society. Those are the Purusharthas, the four Purusharthas. Personal, becoming virtuous so we can get ahead in the world, so we can enjoy, and then when we've seen through the whole scam, become free. But that's, why do we call that, why does Krishnadas Kaviraj say that that's cheating religion? Because it's about me. It's about my virtue, my material progress, my enjoyment, my freedom. So these are selfish motives. So therefore, the Bhagavatam, it's such a strong way to put it. Not even just conventional dharma, but cheating dharma. It's dharma for sure. So the Vedas, they have something for everyone. And sometimes devotees have referred to the Vedas as a jungle of sounds. It can be very, very confusing. People think, oh, well, it's Vedic. Let me do such and such a thing because it's Vedic. It's there in the Vedas. And so this jungle of sound, because you've got all these things coming at you from all different directions. It's like someone like me, old man with hearing completely shot to heck. And if I'm in a room where there's any ambient sound and someone is speaking to me, I may hear half of what they say. I'm not a good lip reader, but I use, I'm looking at their mouth. I mean, any ambient sound. Some, like I couldn't hear the devotee the other day when the gates were coming down. All of a sudden, I couldn't hear what was being said because there was another sound. And if there's 2 or 3 other conversations going on in the room, I'm lost. I'm leaning in and I'm asking them to please repeat, probably coming off as very rude in so many ways. But I'm just struggling to kind of make out what's actually being said to me, what's actually being addressed to me in this forest of sound. So the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, they especially teach us this message of surrender to the Supreme Lord, pure devotional service to Krishna. And although other things are discussed in the Bhagavatam, it's all by way of contrasting. It's all by way of saying, this is not that. This, and we see that, wherever something else seems to be the subject of discussion in the Bhagavatam, then it'll come to the point where the bhakti is completely different. It's its own thing. We see that so many places in the Bhagavatam. Another thing is the business of the Brahmanas. Well, there's 2 things together. It's just really hard. It's really hard for me to ignore. Playing on the phrase that Srila Prabhupada introduces in his purport to the last verse of chapter 21. He says, each was glad to fulfill the other's purpose. This reciprocal relationship is called bhakti karya. And when I looked in the Vedabase the other day, because someone asked me afterwards, because I think I mentioned that I found this phrase particularly striking. So someone asked me, what it meant. And so I went and looked in the Vedabase, and I only find one other instance, and that's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the phrase Shuddha Bhakti Karya comes up. Srila Prabhupada gives that as pure devotional service. So, one thing that we can understand from this is that, well, one, there's a couple of things in there, and they're so tightly coupled that it's a little hard for me to separate them. One is the gentleness of this exchange. This is Swayambhuva Manu, for goodness sake. He's heavy dude, very powerful, very opulent person. And Kardama Muni's just been engaged in crazy austerities for how long? 10,000 years? Why? To get a wife. And so, he's got to be a little intense himself. But the exchange that we see between them is so gentle. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his comment on the first verse of this chapter, He says, Manu spoke to the sage who became silent or who was just detached from everything. And then he says he was embarrassed. Prabhupada says he was feeling modest. And Vishwanath says he's feeling embarrassed because of hearing his own glories. I mean, just think about how effusive Kardama Muni's praise of Swayambhuva Manu was. Now, he's going to ask Manu, why are you here? Why have you come? My dear sir, I'm really curious to understand why you've come. But he knows, because the Lord personally, after praising Kardama Muni's probably also a little embarrassed by the praise that was given to him as a gentle Brahmana by the Lord himself. So he knows, and the Lord told him, okay, you're not going to be frustrated in this. You've made this big endeavor to get this particular goal, and you will be satisfied, because Swayambhuva Manu and his wife Shatarupa are going to come, and they're personally going to offer you their daughter Devahuti, who is just gorgeous and has the most spotless character. This would be the perfect wife for you. So, but he's asking, please tell me why you've come. So I'm really struck by the gentleness of the exchange. And then the other part that's that I find so tightly coupled is this business of exchange. Because this is what bhakti is about. Bhakti is an exchange of love between the Lord and the devotees. If we look in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the first chapter, text 11, Rupa Goswami gives his definition of pure devotional service, Shuddha Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, as he puts it. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma dinavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. So there's two parts to the definition there. One is the tatastha lakshana, or marginal characteristics, in this case defining it by what it's not, which is often the case with the tatastha lakshana. It's not about jnana karma or anything else. In other words, completely free of any self-interest. And then the svarupa lakshana, the essential characteristic of the definition. Anukulyena krishnanushilanam. Anukul means favorable. I just met a really sweet devotee yesterday named Anukul, son of my godbrother and godsister. And I just thought, oh. And he seems to kind of live up to his name. He's very friendly. And very soft-hearted as well. And then Krishnanushilanam, and Jiva Goswami explains this at some length. Shil means activity, Anushilana means ongoing activity, and Krishna Anushilanam, activity for Krishna, and activity meant to give pleasure to Krishna. So that's pure devotional service. And Krishna is naturally going to respond, because he's a person, he's very soft-hearted. One of his names is Bhaktavatsala. He seems, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discusses this at the beginning of his Madhurya Kadambini, when he wants to establish just how independent Bhakti Devi is. And he in order to do that, he first has to present somewhat extended argument about how independent Krishna is, which is absolutely, completely independent. So he says Bhakti Devi is every bit as independent as Krishna, and therefore she can go wherever she wants. But here's how she chooses where she'll go. When she's taken shelter in the heart of a devotee who accepts her from another devotee, then she follows that devotee's lead. Wherever that devotee shows kindness, she follows. Therefore, he says, Krishna has made the devotees, especially the Madhyama Bhaktas, who are inclined to share their shraddha, share whatever bhakti they have with others. We call it preaching. sharing sounds a little woo-woo to us sometimes. But what do we really have? Are we going to really give someone bhakti by our argument? Probably it's about your 2 or 3 minute, argument. You're gonna get anywhere? No, give them a book. Because that's what's going to change their hearts. That's what we want. We want the hearts to change, not just the heads. We use our heads to soften our hearts. So Bhakti Devi follows those devotees' leads and enters that other person's heart. That seed, that Bhakti Lata Bija is planted by this sharing. This is a viral process, right? The devotees, they have a very catchy disease. There's a poem attributed to the Sufi poet Hafiz that says, I caught the happy virus last night while singing God's names under the stars. He says, it's very contagious, so kiss me. So this is how bhakti moves through the world. So Vishwanath makes this point that the devotees the Lord makes them agents of His Kripa Shakti, His mercy-giving potency. And then he asks, well, how is it, so this actually answers, how is it that some people get bhakti and some people don't? Because that would make it seem like the Lord is partial. And he says, yeah, the Lord, there is some partiality. The Lord says in the Gita that He's not partial. He's not averse or partial to anyone. But he's a little bit, he's actually inclined to the devotees, and Vishnu says, that's not a flaw. That's an ornament. Because they're giving their love to Him. How cold-hearted would it be not to respond? And Krishna tells us everywhere that He's purchased by that love. This is Advaita Acharya's reflection as he decides, okay, it's time for the Lord to descend. Things are getting really, really bad. And so it's time for the Lord to descend. So he's reflecting. The Lord says that if someone worships Him with just Ganges water, with bhakti, right? With something as simple as Ganges water and Tulsi manjaris, that he becomes purchased by that person. He becomes their property. So he took his Nrsimha Shila, and he was worshipping him with Ganges water and soft Tulsi manjaris and loud cries. What's the Bengali word? Hunkar, right? He's roaring. It's time. Now, come. And then, of course, later, Advaita excuses the Lord with this enigmatic poem. The market's full of rice. Everyone's completely satisfied. The marketplace is depleted. So it's like, okay, everybody's gotten had the opportunity to get love of God. Now you don't have to preach anymore. Now you can just go do your own thing. And Lord Chaitanya's, then He's able to withdraw into His later pastimes. So this is an exchange. And the Brahmanas are especially meant for this kind of exchange, because it's the Brahmanas who are being described in this verse. Srila Prabhupada said in a few dozen places that the Brahmins have six kinds of business. Patana, patana, yajana, yajana, dana, pratigraha. So patana, patana. Studying, becoming scholars in the Vedic literature and sharing their knowledge with others. Because what's the point of understanding something having something valuable if you're just going to hoard it? We see that with the Brahmin of Avanti, who's described in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. The guy was so stingy. He had plenty of money. But he was so stingy, he wouldn't even spend money on his own sense gratification, not to speak of the comforts of his family and friends. And everybody just became so disgusted with him that he ended up losing everything. They started stealing things, and then everything just sort of fell apart, and he was left with nothing. And then finally he said, oh, okay. Tansa astaya paratmanishtam adhyasitam purvatamaya maharshivi ahung tadashyami duranta param tamomukam. So all I have now is the opportunity to serve the Lord. So I am stating my determination to cross over the ocean of birth and death by taking shelter of devotional service to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Mukunda. So the Brahmanas are meant for this, becoming scholarly and then sharing that. I was speaking last night how Krishna was glorifying the trees of Vrindavan because they give their everything for others' benefit. And then Krishna says, and everyone should become like this. That famous verse, Etavad Janma Sapalyam. Srila Prabhupada sometimes cited that as to how we can preach. With four things: pranaya, artha, dhya, vacha. Our life, our wealth, our intelligence, and our speech. Whatever we have, we should use that in the Lord's service to bring others in. Bringing in the sheaves, I guess. And then yajna, engaging in the worship of the Lord and engaging others in the worship of the Lord. Again, not just keeping it to myself, but sharing it with others by engaging them and teaching them. And then dana pratigraha, giving in charity and accepting charity. We sometimes miss the other part. We're eager to accept charity. But giving charity sometimes might seem a little hard for us. So Srila Prabhupada, when he talks about this, he says, so we accept donations from people and then we give them something very valuable in return. We give them this transcendental knowledge. We give them books. We give them whatever instruction we can. We share with them whatever faith we have. So the gentleness that we see in this is due to this exchange of love, exchange of hearts. And this is why I think I'm particularly heartened by the devotees who show up in the temple for Krishna Katha, whether it's Bhagavad Gita class, Srimad Bhagavatam class, or whatever, because we can actually feel each other's hearts. This is happening. It's a little less direct when we do it through Zoom. And we became accustomed to that due to necessity, whether perceived or real, during the pandemic. But now it's become the default for so many people. And it's better when we're together, because we can actually, same thing with a kirtan, right? Even mundane performances. It's one thing to watch a film of The Tempest, right? It's a completely different thing to be there in the audience with a whole bunch of other people, experiencing this performance with them. Or the same with a concert. My first concerts were folk music concerts back in the early 60s, and then later I went to a few rock concerts before I became a devotee. Actually, it was at the first rock concert I went to that I met the devotees. I didn't go to rock concerts because of my situation in the Navy. I had a very restricted top secret clearance, and the concerts that I wanted to go to were the ones that I shouldn't be seen at. But when I went to a Jimi Hendrix concert in May of 1969, then I met the devotees. Then I heard the Maha Mantra being chanted by devotees rather than by the cast of hair. And it was like a whole different experience. So a live performance is so much more powerful, although when we're going to watch the video, because that's how we do it over and over again, right? There's some kirtans that I just kind of like, I'll put them on a loop. A couple of Badahari kirtans, a couple of Janavis, or Amala Harinams, especially some of the devotees whose voices particular, and hearts, I really, Chuta Gopi, just put them on a loop, and just let it run all day. When I go in the kitchen, I'll pick one kirtan and I'll just put it on a loop. But even better is when you're in there in the room, because you're surrounded by, we're sharing our breath together, right? Our life's breath together in glorifying the Supreme Lord. And then we have the exchanges between devotees that we see in the Upadeshamrita. Dadati pratigranati, dadati pratigranati, guhyamakati prachati, bhukte bhojayate chaiva. So these are exchanges of love. Love it's a reciprocal thing, and that's what we're seeing here between Swayambhuva Manu and Kardama Muni. Manu trusts Kardama so much that he's going to give his dear, I know what this is like. Dad, when we have daughters, we want to make sure that they have the best husband, because this is the rest of their life, and it's got to be good. And if there's any doubt, any qualms, it's just like, ooh. My older daughter, when she married, she and her husband were legally married, but she didn't put on her wedding ring until she came back to Hawaii with her husband, and I married them. They were legally married for his parents' sake. But she said, I'm not putting on the ring. We're not really married until my Pita marries us, which was just one of the most wonderful things a dad can hear. So here, Swayambhuva Manu, he trusts Kardama so much that he's going to give him his beloved daughter. And Kardama, he understands what a wonderful personality Manu is. I mean, we just hear this glorification, took up this last whole chapter. So this is our life. This should be our life in Krishna consciousness. Incessant exchanges of love among devotees, as close as we can, as close as we possibly can. Okay, I'm already in trouble. I will stop here and entertain any discussion. Bhagavati Prabhu. Oh boy, this is I have it looked like an article. It's probably going to turn into a book about bhakti. I started out wanting to write about how powerful bhakti is, and then I have to explore who Bhakti Devi is. So perhaps she's an expansion of Radharani. I haven't really nailed this down yet. But ultimately, when we say Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, it's Radharani. She's the source of bhakti. Right? We hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita that that Balaram he's the root cause of the identity of a bhakta. But bhakti herself is Radharani. She's the personification of bhakti. So that's the best I can do for now. Yes?
It mentioned twice, I think it was in the translation and in the purport, that the Brahmins were full of mystic powers. And in your class, you kind of referred to Kardama Muni as a Brahmin, but we know he's a yogi as well. But what's the relationship there? Do the Brahmins practice this mystic yoga, and is that how they get their mystic powers? Are Brahmins simultaneously yogis, or what's the relationship? How do the Brahmins get their mystic powers unless they're performing the mystic yoga system?
Yeah. I had a lesson many years ago as to how far I am from being a Brahmana and having any mystic power. Some devotees did something that I took such umbrage at that I thought I was going to curse someone, and I just about snapped my thumb off. Never again. The Brahmanas have access to mystic powers because of their austerity and their knowledge. Srila Prabhupada describes sometimes that the Brahmanas' wealth is their austerity. So they may have access to whatever powers may be useful for them in their particular service. But not all Brahmanas, practice like Ashtanga yoga or something like that. But they have some power, perhaps to the extent that they're austere. So this may be why it didn't work for me. follow up? No, Maharaj?
Oh, fine. Thank you. Yeah, well, my understanding from the actual reading, what Prabhupada writes is that the Brahmins, they receive those mystical powers from God. They get them
Yes.
from God. And the Lord decides as to what this person should and should not get. Because some are still dabbling in the false ego, and you have to be very careful about giving that person something which he may misuse. So the point is this, is that Krishna decides which one a person, or which 3 or 4 a person should have, and use them under his guidance, of course.
Yes. Thank you. Bhagavati? Sachi?
Anybody else want the microphone?
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. That was wonderful presentation. Yes, in reading the description of different brahmanas, everybody's in a different situation. Like, for example, we have Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni is the classical example of someone who, due to his austerities, and then we have someone like Markandeya, powerful Brahman too, that he was able to even live for millions of years within the ocean. That the Lord gives them to set particular, according to how they want their desire. And then you have, for example, someone like Dronacharya, Kshatriya Brahman. And then you have, many like that. So, yes, I think Markandeya, Kardama Muni had that both, yeah.
He's going to show it. He's going to use it.
Yes.
He's going to create this beautiful flying city for his wife. So we see how that's going to. Srila Prabhupada, we see, he may not have looked like someone with mystic powers until he did what he did. He did something that no one else could really do.
And we have a Maharaj, another example in the beginning of when Parikshit Maharaj was cursed. He was just a child.
Yeah.
He was a child. And it is said that from that moment, the degradation of the Brahmana started. Kali Yuga entered.
We see in Durvasa Muni, we see tremendous mystical power, but in someone who's still infected with false ego. Because, all you have to do is look crooked at the guy, and he'll get ticked off at you and ruin your life. He was sent by Duryodhana to the Pandavas specifically for that reason. But Krishna thwarted his attempt, and he and his 10,000 previously very hungry disciples scurried away. They just kind of like snuck away, embarrassed. And Shringi, who occasioned the Bhagavad. Now these things happen for Leela. They're allowed to misuse their mystic powers for Leela, because Shringi, he immediately regretted his stupid, childish, because he was a Brahmin, he had some power, but he wasn't trained how to control it. And he certainly wasn't trained how to control his temper. It was somewhat justified. This is my father and teacher who apparently has been insulted. But for such a silly insult, such a drastic reaction, it's unwarranted. So yeah, this is what makes the world go around. All these different varieties. Even devotees. Srila Prabhupada told us, we had a private meeting with Prabhupada in 1973, and at one point he told us, devotees in devotional service cannot be stereotyped. There's nothing that can't be used in Krishna's service. Simply we require guidance from the expert spiritual master how to engage everything in Krishna's service. That is the only catch. Thank you. Bhagavati, you had a follow-up? Okay. I think it's a good time to stop. Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go to Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you.
Yes,